Darren said that he wasn't able to make it today, but I'll tell him that Ira came just for him. Okay. So for those of you, many of you at least are aware, Baruch Hashem, our soldiers are in Gaza. And when you're in Gaza, they set up over there menorahs all over, Chabad houses all over in Gaza itself. It's a big sign, first Chabad house in Gaza, since we re-entered Gaza. Many public menorahs all over Gaza. So we'll talk about... Oh yeah? That's a nice place to have one. So we'll talk a little bit about...
And they printed a tiny.
Printed a tiny Saddam Hussein's palace, beautiful. So we'll talk a little bit about this week's parsha, what it has to do with Chanukah, and a little bit about the public menorahs that are up all over, and what it means to listen to the miracle of Chanukah. And this Friday is the earliest shortest, one of the shortest days of the year, and it's the earliest Shabbos of the year, if I remember, if I'm correct. So maybe we'll make also one of the shortest Shiurim of the year. Yeah, it's in the Rabbi Yitzchak's office. So everyone over here is familiar, perhaps, with the story of Yosef and his brothers. Yosef was sold by his brothers into slavery. Not this Yosef, the Yosef that we have, Baruch Hashem. He's the one who the enemies are scared of him, not the other way around. But as a story in this week's parsha goes, that in the city of Shechem, which was once a city, but was totally decimated, destroyed, annihilated, killed by everyone, killed by Shimon and Leve, the city of Shechem. So being that now it was an empty city, so it was a good place for Yosef's brothers, the sons of Yaakov, who had many sheep and flock. It was a good place for them to bring their sheep to graze, because there weren't any people in Shechem there to graze their sheep, to take their sheep out grazing. So Yosef's brothers went to graze and to bring their flocks to graze their sheep. Now, Yosef and his brothers did not get along so well, for many reasons. One of them being, they were very, you could say, jealous of Yosef. Very jealous, thank you. Canadian coins, does this count as anything?
Canada.
Canada, that counts. Correct.
At one point, they were worth more than the United States.
Really? So Yosef and his brothers were very jealous of Yosef. What's the reason why? Because the father showed him a lot of favoritism. Simple reason is because Yaakov's favorite wife, her name was Rachel, and Yosef was her oldest child. So Yaakov loved Yosef very much. Spiritually, the reason is because Yaakov recognized the greatness of Yosef and who he was and what he could accomplish. All of his uniqueness and specialties. But it says in the Torah that Yaakov went and told his son Yosef. Yosef was younger by his brothers than his brothers by a couple of years, and he told him, "Go see how your brothers are doing in the city of Shechem. I have my first cousin. He's a soldier now in the Israeli army. He's almost 40 years old. He lives in Brooklyn. He has 6 children, but he's a medic, and his unit was called up to the Israeli army. And he was there 20 years ago." And so now he's serving the Israeli army. And a few nights ago, he posted a video to us saying, here is exactly where his emda, where his post is. Here's the city of Shechem on his right. Next on his left, and he zooms, here's a town called Shalem. He says Yaakov came to Shalem to do business with the people of Shechem. And Shimon and Leve did what they had to do in Shechem a long time ago, and hopefully Mashiach comes before it comes down to doing what they had to do again. So the city of Shechem today, Yosef is buried there in the city of Shechem. Unfortunately, due to the Oslo Accords, it's no Jews allowed to live in the city of Shechem, and more than once the grave of Yosef, has been completely vandalized by the Arabs living in the city of Shechem. So Yosef's traveling to Shechem. It says that Shechem is muchan l'puranos. Shechem is always a place where tragedies have the potential to occur. Yosef was sold in Shechem, and in addition to that, Yaakov and Yaakov's sons Shimon and Levi killed all the people of Shechem. So the Torah says Shimshon was in Shechem? Really? So the Torah says like this. Torah, chapter 37. The brothers of Yosef, they could not speak peacefully to the brother to the brother Yosef, because they're always jealous of him. He's getting so much special attention from his father. He got a special coat. Yosef had a dream that he's going to be ruling, he's going to be a king, and his brothers will bow down to him. And Yosef was 17 years old. He was with his brothers, with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives, and it says he brought evil tales to their father. It says that he was trying to get his brothers to improve, so he went to their father and he told them, my brothers did this and this and that. He's trying to get Yaakov to tell his brothers to improve, although his brothers didn't take it that way. Yaakov loved his son Yosef, and he had two dreams saying how his father and his brothers will all bow down to him. And it says mother, well, it was not his mother, it was Bilhah. And his brothers were very jealous of him, and they said, let's go away from Yosef. And they went to the city of Shechem to pasture their sheep, to pasture their father's flocks. This is Pasuk Yibbeis, and his brothers went to pasture their father's flocks in the city of Shechem. And Yaakov, which is Israel, told Yosef, are your brothers not in Shechem, taking care of their flocks? Go, and I will send you to them. And he says, I am ready to go. Even though he knew his brothers didn't like him, still he's ready to go see his brothers. And he sent him to go shopping. Again, he sent him to go see his brothers. And it was a very long trip. He didn't see his father again for 22 years after he was sent on that trip. It's like the famous story of Rabbi Shmuel Monkes. Rabbi Shmuel Monkes, one time his wife sent him. He lived in a town, a city, I'm not sure what the name of the city was. And his wife sent him to go buy milk in the market. So he took the pitcher of milk with him to the market. And Shmuel Monkes, he's known more of a prankster and a jokester, but he was a very special chassid. As a matter of fact, we know several chassidim who are on the level being called a Beinani of Tanya, the middleman, the average person in Tanya. He was a tzaddik of Tanya. That's how great he was. Shmuel Monkes, he would spend many hours meditating the deep concepts in Torah and Chassidus, and he would go out to the fields and think deeply, meditate for many hours. And any field that Shmuel Monkes would go to and sit and meditate there, that field would miraculously have a very large yield that year. A blessing. When Itzada goes to a place, that field would have a very large crop. And Rabbi Shmuel Monkes, he wouldn't go to any specific field. He would just randomly walk in the, walk in the fields, walk outside the city, and wherever his feet would take him, that's where he would stop, and he would sit and meditate wherever he would. So the different farmers used to make different types of tricks trying to get their full Monkes to sit in their field and meditate. They put up fences, they put up pathways. The Shmuel Monkes, a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, said there was one time his wife sent him to the market to go buy milk. And on the way, he had a very pressing question in Chassidus, and he's thinking of the question, and he couldn't get the answer, and he was getting bothered. and he has such a question. I have to go right away to the Alter Rebbe, and he traveled to Liozna, and it took him a few days, maybe a few weeks, to travel to Liozna. And in Liozna, he's there for several weeks till he finally gets the Yechidus with the Alter Rebbe, a private audience. And after being by the Alter Rebbe, he has Yechidus, he has a question answered, and then he takes a few more weeks to process the question, and he comes back home. It's already a few months later, and he's coming back home, and he walks into his town, and he still has a pitcher in his hand. He's like, why am I holding a pitcher? He's like, oh, my wife wanted me to go to the market to buy milk. I must be so late. I'm so delayed. Let me hurry up. And he ran to the market, and he quickly filled up the pitcher of milk. He ran home, and as he opens the door of his house, he's running so fast that he slipped over the doorstep, and he dropped the whole entire pitcher with the milk, and it cracked, and all the milk spilled all over. And he tells his wife, you see, haste makes waste. If you rush too much, you end up wasting. It's not good to rush to run too fast. So Yaakov sends his son Yosef to see how his brothers are doing in Shechem and come back and tell me a report. And he goes and he doesn't come back for 22 years. What happened during those 22 years? So the Torah tells us a very interesting thing. And we have this really mysterious person whose name is not mentioned in the Torah. And this person has perhaps the greatest impact on Jewish history, more than anybody else, an unnamed person who's mentioned as a side note in the Torah. Yosef comes to Shechem and he's lost in the field. A man found him in the field. And the man asks him, what are you looking for? Now, every time somebody stopped to ask for directions, is that noteworthy? Is that important enough to write in the Torah? Sure, it's happened many times. The Torah doesn't tell us every time somebody stops and asks for directions. So you have this man who sees Yosef and he says, what are you looking for? And Yosef tells him, I am looking for my brothers. Please tell me now, where are they pasturing their sheep? And the man said, they have traveled away from here, from the city, from the fields near the city. I have heard them say, let us go to Dothan. There's many cities in the United States called Dothan. Dothan, Georgia. It's a city right on the border with Florida. And I think even now there's a shliach in the city of Dothan in Georgia. But I met Jews who come from the city of Dothan. So Dothan is the name of a city. Although we'll see very soon, there are opinions who say there never was such a city, never was such a place. The brother said, let us go to Dothan. So Yosef went after his brothers, and he found them in the city of Dothan. And then the brothers saw him from far away, and they started plotting against him. They said, Yosef, until now, he's been getting us in small and medium trouble. I think now he's trying to get us into big trouble, find some reasons why Yaakov should judge us, why we should be liable to the death penalty, and he'll find other reasons. And there are enough reasons out there. Among them, the brothers married their twin sisters, as Rashi says. So perhaps Yosef is trying to find excuses how to get them to have capital punishment. And it said, here is a dreamer who's coming, let us kill him, throw him into a pit. And of course, Reuven saved them, saved Yosef. We will not sell Yosef. Instead, they threw Yosef into a pit. They took off his special colored cloak that Yaakov gave him, and eventually they sold him. Yehuda gave the advice to save him, to sell him. He was sold in slavery till he made it down to Mitzrayim, to Potiphar, etc. He was in jail, in prison for 12 years. Eventually became second in command to Paro. Eventually he saved Yosef and Yaakov and his brothers and the entire world from hunger. But it all started with this one mysterious person. Who is this? Yosef could not find his brothers. If he never found this person, he would have been walking around all over, couldn't find his brothers. He would have left. He would have gone home. Never would have got sold. The brothers never would have gone to Egypt to look for him. Jews would have never been in Egypt in exile. Although we know after the fact, Hashem will have found a different way for them to go. I'm saying, but in the natural order of ways in the Torah, there's one person who had a huge impact. He found Yosef. He says, what are you looking for? Your brothers? Oh, your brothers went to Dosan. He had a huge impact on history, and he's an afterthought in the Torah. Who is this person? So let's turn on Rashi. It's one of the good things about Chabad.org. You could choose to show Rashi or not. So let's show Rashi. Rashi, of course, compiles from the Gemara, from the Midrashim, what's needed to understand the basic understanding of the Torah. And Rashi says like this: he came to Shechem, and the city of Shechem was a place destined for misfortune. Over there, the tribes sinned. Later on, they sinned in the future. In the city of Shechem, Dinah was violated by Shechem and Hamor. And over there, the kingdom of David was split into two. Now became two kingdoms, the kingdom of David, kingdom of Israel. So Shechem is a place ready for misfortune. And a man found him. Who is this man? Says Rashi. Zeh Gabriel. This is the angel Gabriel. That's a man who found him. As it says, Vayish Gabriel. Further on, so now that we know this person who found Yosef was an angel, so that means he was put there on purpose by Hashem to have this huge impact on Jewish history. It's part of Hashem's plan that Yosef should be sold to Egypt. Then Gabriel told them they traveled away from here and they went to Dothan. What does it mean they traveled from here? Says Rashi, they removed themselves from brotherhood. They are no longer your brothers. And it said, we'll go to Dothan. There's many Mefarshim which say Dothan was never a place in Israel. Rather, he's telling him a message. And he's telling him like this. Imagine someone, Mr. A says Mr. B a message. Everyone understands it one way. But Mr. B knows a secret code and he understands a message. Throughout the wars, there's been many hidden types of messages being hidden in crossword puzzles of different newspapers, hidden in the personal messages or the classifieds of different newspapers. And those who understand could understand a hidden meaning behind many of the things that are being put out. So Gabriel told him a double message. He told him, your brothers have gone to the city of Dosan, but he also told him that he's going to do das. What does das mean in Hebrew? Modern Hebrew, das means a religious person. Why does das mean a religious person? Because das means laws, rules. As we learned in the Megillah, the rules are different than everyone else. Das means rules. Yes, religion is rules. Yiddishkeit is not a religion. If it's just a religion, all it would be rules, but it's much more than that. It's a way of life. It's a way of connection to Hashem. So they said, we have gone to look for rules. They've gone to look for legal rules. We're trying to find, according to halacha, can we find a legal pretext why Yosef is allowed to be put to death? So they weren't. So this adds right away a whole new light. The brothers weren't just in a bad mood, retribution brothers, and the culture is in all the Arab societies. How the brothers hate the brothers, and they're always in wars, and you have thousands of years, two clans in a war, and they always hate each other, and you have hundreds of examples in the Middle East world, in the Muslim world, all because the two brothers hated each other back in the day. Here, they were looking for dasis. They said, we're going according to the Torah. And can we find, according to the Torah, a reason why Yosef should be put to death? And let's be finished with all of these problems once and for all. So Gabriel is telling him a double message. And if Yosef would be discerning enough, he would understand the hidden message, which is that your brothers are trying to kill you. So the man told him, Gabriel, the angel told him, yes, they went to Doisan, but they're trying to find legal reasons how to kill you. So if Yosef wanted, he could have got the message. The Ramban says, Yosef was not able to understand the message, and therefore he went to Doisan, and therefore he was eventually sold off into slavery. However, that's the Ramban. Other Mefarshim say like this, no, Yosef understood the message very well, very clearly. He wasn't born yesterday. He was very discerning, very wise. As a matter of fact, to the extent, Paro made him second in command, viceroy to the king, because he said, there's no one as wise as you and all of my people. You imagine, Paro had the greatest astrologers, the people who could look at the stars and find out the future, people who could understand hints. The greatest Tiferes, he had the decipherers. Entire it's called Bletchley Park was working for Paro, and still Yosef is said is more wise than all of them, and therefore Yosef was viceroy to the king, no one else. So let me think for a moment. If Yosef is wiser than any of Paro's advisors, even Bilam, who knew secrets of the heaven, was an advisor, and Yosef's wiser than them. So for sure, Yosef would understand the hint that the angel is trying to tell him. It wasn't in a way that it's impossible to understand. And especially the way Rashi says, Nas umizeh, they have removed themselves from brotherhood. They made a pact and said, Yosef is no longer our brother. And they even sat Shiva for him. As it says, they drink a cup of wine of consolation. They give mourners a cup of wine to drink to console them. And the brothers really drink that for Yosef. So they removed themselves from being related to Yosef. So if that's the case, and he's getting that message, Yosef could understood there's danger, stop, danger coming up. Yeah?
Yep.
He wouldn't be one of those people where, they're driving the ship and then they get a message, hurricane ahead, tsunami coming, stay away. Oh, well, it sounds fun, let's go for it. It wasn't one of those. And Yosef nevertheless went, and he says, I'm going to go see my brothers. I want to go visit them. Is he a fool? Obviously not. Paro didn't think so. Yosef will go and put himself in danger? For what purpose? To go see how they're doing and come back to Yaakov. There's a very good chance he won't make it back to Yaakov. As we see, it actually happened. He almost didn't make it back at all, but he ended up making it back after 22 years. It's a pretty long, it's a pretty big chance. The Torah Chassidim in Russia were having self-sacrifice. It says, are you guys crazy? What are you fighting the government for? You know what's going to happen? They're going to take your children away, put them into orphanages. They're going to take you and execute you, or put you in, or put you in Siberia, or kill you straight out. Your children will be taken away, and you wanted to accomplish anyways. It was not going to be accomplished. They would open the cheder, it would be closed within a few months, and the teacher arrested or executed, depending.
But in the end, actually, the Soviet Union fell, and the yeshivas are up.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
And say, what are you doing? So Yosef, he asked the same question. What are you doing? Are you putting yourself in danger? Are you mad? Go back to your father. You'll have a little bit of politics with your brothers. Okay, fine. So you'll go your way, he'll go his way. You guys will grow up. Life will be okay. But what are you putting yourself in danger if he's being told by Gabriel in a way that you can understand that your brothers are out to get you? So you could say like this. You could say he had a mission from his father. Remember what his father told him? Let me go send you to your brothers, see how they are doing, see how the sheep are doing, and bring me back word how they are doing. So he wanted to have Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice, to do a mitzvah called Kibbud Av V'Em, honoring your father and mother. And even though it's potentially an uncomfortable situation, but he'll do it, so he'll put himself into potential danger in order to give honor to his father. Let me ask you, everybody here, I'm sure, for their father, for their mother, they would do anything in the world, even if it meant putting himself in danger. So Yosef wants to honor his father. His father gave him a mission, and he'll do it, even if it's putting himself in a place of danger. Let's look at this. Have you ever heard of a term called Yaroig ve'al yaver? What does that mean?
He should be killed
And not
actually by
transgress. In general, in the Torah, there are 3 mitzvahs which are called Yaroig ve'al yaver, where one must not transgress the mitzvah and let themselves be killed. The rest of the Torah, if God forbid, in order to save your life, you have to travel on Shabbos. You travel on Shabbos. Why? If the ambulance comes on Shabbos, because in order to save someone's life, you're allowed to transgress Shabbos in order to save a life. Right? So someone, God forbid, has a heart attack on Shabbos, you pick up the phone, you call the ambulance or Hatzalah. In New York, Hatzalah will come, Jewish from people will come take you to the hospital and care for you on Shabbos. They're driving, they're calling the phone. You're allowed to do it to save a life on Shabbos. And you're even allowed to drive back after if you're Hatzalah. Because that way otherwise you might not do it again in the future. Afterwards, a Hatzalah member is allowed to drive back home or take a taxi back home. Not drive, I take a taxi back home afterwards. And in some situations, they're allowed to drive the ambulance back. Even if now there's no danger to life because the patient's already in the hospital. Because it means in the future they should be allowed to do. If they'll hesitate to do it again because I might get stuck in the hospital, you will have, but people will hesitate. Oh, let that guy do it, and every moment's on the line, right? So you say, oh, there's 50 Hatzalah members in the area, so let someone else take care of this call. I don't want to miss a whole Shabbos afternoon by myself. So they're allowed to drive the ambulance back. What about Shabbos? You're allowed to transgress a mitzvah to save a life. And every mitzvah in the Torah, if a person tells you either transgress a mitzvah or be killed, you're allowed to do the mitzvah except for 3, which are avodah zarah, serving idols, bow to the cross or be killed. The person has to get killed instead of bowing to the cross, instead of idol. Gilei arayos, illegal, immoral relations. Right? Get married to this woman, you'll be killed, or a woman be killed or have relations with this man, and they have to let themselves get killed. And sfichas damim, kill that person or get killed. The person has to be ready to get killed. But otherwise, there's all the other mitzvahs in the Torah are called yavar ve'al yaroig. You should transgress a mitzvah and not get killed. Eat that chazer, eat that pig. He has no choice, he has to do it.
Even though it's like the thought of eating pig, I think if you're used to eating kosher, it's
Right.
not particularly palatable.
Now, I wouldn't know if that applies so let's say a person is starving and the only food around is not kosher food. Yes, he's allowed to eat it. If they're in Siberia and the only way to survive is by eating food from the kitchen, concentration camp, and the only food around is horse meat, take whatever it does to survive, obviously. And Hashem should never test anyone with such situations. Now, a mitzvah, which is not one of these 3 mitzvahs, for example, honoring father and mother. Honoring one's father and mother is not one of the 3 mitzvahs which one must give up their life for. So Yosef did not have to put his life in danger in order to fulfill the mitzvah of honoring his father and mother. However, there's the Rambam and the Ramban. Sounds almost the same.
Yeah.
They lived about 50 years apart from each other. Although the Rambam was born in Spain, but he had to leave there because of the Almohads, and he had a very long, fruitful career. He was in Morocco, he was in Eretz Yisrael, and then at the end of his life was in Egypt.
Because of the Crusaders. The Rambam Fodesh, you're not allowed to live in Egypt according to halacha, but nevertheless, because of the Crusaders in Israel, he had to flee over to Egypt.
Right, very good example, right?
Yeah.
You're not allowed to live in Egypt, but because of the Crusaders, the Rambam had to escape Eretz Yisrael and go to Egypt. Very good example. The Rambam holds that if somebody gave up their life for a mitzvah they're not supposed to give up their life for, mischayev b'nafsho, a person who's responsible for their own death. They're not allowed to do it. The Ramban holds that if one wants to give up their life for any mitzvah, you're allowed to. So Yosef, you could say, is going according to the Ramban. Right? Meaning the Ramban was several thousand years later, but according to the opinion of the Ramban, who explained what Yosef was doing, that he's allowed to put himself in danger to do the mitzvah of kibbud av va'em, because if he wants to put himself in danger, put his life on the line to do any mitzvah, you're allowed to. And however, according to Rashi, we learned to Rashi over here in the Pasuk, in the Torah, in order to completely fulfill the mission of Yaakov, Yosef didn't just have to see how they're doing. He says, "V'hashiveni davar," and bring me back word. Bring me. He has to return to Yaakov to fulfill the mission. And Yosef didn't end up doing that part of the mission. He ended up being sold to Mitzrayim, and by the time he got word back to Yaakov, it was about 22 years later.
Well, at least he got it in the end.
He got word back in the end. So it wasn't just the first part. He says, "Your brothers are in Shechem. I'll send you to Shechem." And that's that part of the mission he fulfilled. Verse 13. Verse 14, he never ended up fulfilling. Bring me back word how they are doing. Right? If your father tells you to go transgress Shabbos, you don't listen to your father. Why? Because your father and you are both obligated to keep Shabbos. But if your father tells you, "I want you to make yourself look silly in the streets and start holding up signs that say we protest all carbon emissions, and you're only allowed to drink Kollel and have electric cars," and I want you to protest that in front of the White House for the next year while wearing a yellow jumpsuit, you have to listen.
Except over there, you still may not have to listen. You know why?
Why?
Because unless you really believe that, because what is that otherwise you're lying. The church says you're not allowed lie one to another, right?
Right. But if the father knows that it's better for him, if you don't do that, the father could understand that he could forgive.
Yeah, but I was also thinking another thing. Maybe you can address this afterwards. Another question is that Yosef actually by risking himself. True, I mean, he would be obeying his father, but at the same time, though, he caused grief to his father.
Oh, Dovi's asking very intuitive questions. I can tell you come from great lineage.
Oh, I do. All of those rabbis.
Oh, yeah.
Including Rashi.
He had a very intuitive question. He's causing grief to his father, and he's not even fulfilling the mission of his father. If his father's mission was go see your brothers, so say maybe if he wants to put himself in danger, according to the Ramban, to see how his brothers are doing, but he's putting his whole entire mission in jeopardy. And I will send you to your brothers, Veshlachacha, and Hashiveni Davar, I want you afterwards to bring me word back. He's putting the mission in jeopardy, and he ended up not doing it, as we see. So he's putting himself, not just putting himself in danger. It's one thing to put yourself in danger to do a mitzvah, right? The Rebbe himself did that many times. The Rebbe, when the Rebbe is 1941, the Rebbe was in France, and it was already occupied by the Germans, and the Rebbe escaped to southern France, to Vichy France, and the Rebbe is in Marseille. The Rebbe went over to a certain Rav and asked him, "Am I allowed to put myself in danger for a Hiddur mitzvah, just to beautify a mitzvah?" And he says, "I knew exactly who was asking me this question, the son-in-law of the Babich Rebbe, and I know that he's quite capable of doing things which I'm totally not, which are putting himself in danger." And I told him, absolutely not. You're not allowed to put yourself in danger for a Hiddur mitzvah.
And who said that?
A certain Rav, I don't remember which rabbi it was.
Recognize the Rebbe.
Meaning, certain people recognize the Rebbe. You reckon, the Rebbe gave a Shiur in Gemara then every single day in his shul. And there are very few Gemaras in the shul. And so everyone would share Gemaras. And then one day, one of the people in the Shiur, the Rebbe is giving the Shiur in Gemara, reading, here's Gemara, here's Rashi, Tiferes explaining. But the Rebbe always kept a Gemara for himself. He wouldn't share his Gemara with anybody. So someone's like, he wanted to know, why is the Rebbe not sharing the Gemara with anybody else? Everyone else is sharing Gemaras in the share. Let the Rebbe share Gemara too. And he wanted to join the share. And he looks over and he sees the Rebbe has a different Masechta out, a different chapter, different tractate out altogether. And the Rebbe is reading, giving his share. The third line over here, Rashi, Tosfos explaining that there were obviously without the correct Gemara in front of him, while the Rebbe is simultaneously learning a different Gemara on it for himself. Correct? There were certain people who understood the greatness of the Rebbe then, and
this Rebbe noticed that, huh?
Yeah, this Rebbe noticed that. So when he saw the Rebbe asking, "Can I put my life in danger for a Hiddur mitzvah to beautify a mitzvah?" He told the Rebbe, "Absolutely not," knowing the Rebbe is not going to listen anyways. And this is before Sukkot. And several days later, the Rebbe came back to him, and the Rebbe brought him an esrog from southern Italy, from Calabria, which is under the Italian fascists. The Rebbe traveled to Calabria, to southern Italy, got several esrogim, and came back. And the Rebbe brought it to this Rebbe as a present, one for himself, and one for the Rabbi, and one for some other people there, to get a Calabria esrog. The Rebbe, before Pesach that year, all right, because it was shortly after Pesach that the Rebbe left in 1941. I was able to escape France, and then from there he went to Portugal, and from there he managed to take a ship to the United States.
And you said actually the Rebbe gave one of those this program to that Rav too, right?
Yeah, and he understood very well what the Rebbe was asking him about. Can you imagine during wartime, you're under the Vichy, under the German collaborators? It's a very dangerous time, and the Rebbe is traveling through occupied France to Italy, which is also German collaborators, right? They're also anti-Jewish. Under Mussolini, and the Rebbe traveled to get a esrog from southern Italy. In addition to that, the Rebbe, we heard this from the Rebbetzin, the Rebbe walked 6 hours on a very dangerous mountain path in order to get onions to use for karpas, for Seder. Now, although you could use other vegetables, anything that's a dhamma pretty much, you could use for karpas, potatoes or anything else. It's a Chabad custom to use onions, and the Rebbe walked for 6 hours on a mountain path to get onions. Right? So the Rebbe was a very good example of somebody who put himself in danger for a mitzvah, or for a Hiddur mitzvah, to beautify a mitzvah.
Well, I might remember reading, not as far as Hiddur mitzvah, but I remember reading as far as actually, the Rebbe the Rebbe were, it was literally dangerous.
Correct.
That's where he would actually be doing in a brissim, right?
Yeah.
Be dressed in rags and going, and in order to actually, as best as he could actually to avoid a big danger, but nevertheless putting his life at risk because he knew that the KGB was after, quickly doing actually a bris and actually going. And over here, it's like you could say, oh, he's not obligated. So he wanted to make sure that people
correct. The German Rebbe bring very good examples.
Yeah.
People who put their lives in danger for a Hiddur mitzvah. The obligation to sanctify Hashem's name, put your life in danger for a mitzvah, applies even for non-important mitzvahs, even for not the 3 cardinal mitzvahs in certain situations. One of the situations is if you have a very great tzaddik and he wants to show an example for everybody else. If the entire generation is not being careful in one thing, in one idea, so a tzaddik, a holy person, a rabbi, is allowed to put himself in danger to do that mitzvah to show everyone how important it is, and make himself an example for the mitzvah. Why? Because you're not just doing one mitzvah, but rather you're sanctifying Hashem's name, showing everybody's not being careful in this mitzvah, and therefore we have to be very careful in this mitzvah. So in this example over here, Yosef saw his brothers, and he saw that they were being lax in the mitzvah of kibbud av v'em, honoring your father and mother. Many things happened. First of all, Shimon and Leve killed the people of Shechem without asking permission from their father, Yaakov. Yaakov was quite upset about that. He says, he put me in danger. Reuven, he moved his father's bed from Bilhah's tent to Leah's tent without asking his father permission. Yaakov was upset about that, as we see later on.
It was interfering. Yeah.
The brothers were jealous of Yosef. Why? Because Yaakov showed a lot of favoritism to Yosef. And that caused jealousy. So they were upset at their father's choices. Let's say your father was, I don't know, on the Forbes 4 or 500 list, or the Forbes 400 list. And you have a brother, and he says, okay, although my fortune is $12 billion, $11.9 billion will go to him, and you're going to get only $100 million. Will you get along? Will you be upset at your brother?
With $100 million,
You don't have 100 million. Like, I could have got another, who knows how much.
But nevertheless, though, 100 million is not bad.
I think when it comes to that, they'd be upset. They wouldn't talk to the brother for the rest of their life, I think.
Oh, I mean, at least actually, Eli would have the excuse. Eli
Eli or Elon, what are you saying?
Eli's 2.5 years older, so I say, well, maybe it's for that. But never $100 million. I wouldn't.
If someone's upset at the brothers because they're not respecting the father's wishes, but they're upset at all the extra attention Yosef is getting from the father. So he saw that they weren't respecting their father properly. So therefore, when the father gave the mission, Yosef says, I have the obligation to show everybody that you have to be ready to put yourself in danger to sanctify Hashem's name. So the midst of kibbut of aim, my brothers are being lax in, I'm going to go put myself in danger with a very strong potential. I might not even be able to fulfill the mission in order to show everyone how important it is to do mitzvah of kibbut of aim. And that's what he did. He came to Shechem, and his malach, the angel, found him, told him where to go. And he knows he's going into a dangerous situation. He knows you're out to kill him. And he does it just to show how important it is to listen to your father. So Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice is warranted in such a situation to show yourself how important it is to go in the way of Hashem. Now, Vishallah, Leve Horowitz
Was my cousin.
who's I don't even have to repeat because everyone knows what I'm going to say. So his cousin, and actually descendant of the Shalah. And the Shalah writes of Shaya Levi Horowitz, buried in Tiferes next to the Rambam, Ravina Ravashi, and he says how all the Yom Tovim, the holidays of the year, are connected to the Parsha of the year that they're in. And Vayeshev, 9 times out of 10, comes out to be in the week of Chanukah. Exactly. Now this week is Vayeshev, and this week is Chanukah. Right. So the week of Chanukah you always have connected to Vayeshev. So let's talk about publicizing the miracle of Chanukah connected to all this entire thing. Here's a very short history of Chanukah menorahs.
What's wrong with this?
Baruch Hashem, there are Baruch Hashem thousands and thousands of public menorahs all around the world. Pittsburgh, there's going to be a large menorah parade in the Science Center. Any of you know the miniature railroad village that they have in the Science Center?
Yeah.
Railroad Village. So this year, they change displays all the time. This year, they put up the Hanukkah menorah parade. They have all those vintage cars inside of that model city. They put up a whole bunch of vintage cars with menorahs on top, large public menorahs in the city, and a large plaque about the menorah parade that goes around the city. And there's a menorah parade this Tuesday in Mirz Hashem. The last is going to be a big lighting over here outside B'nai Emunah. Last night at City Hall with the mayor. It's going to be with the senator. His name is Senator of Pennsylvania.
Oh, Fetterman.
Fetterman, right over here, outside of this building. Amish Hashem.
When we're supporting Israel,
Correct.
it's like being on the left, which is
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and Baruch Hashem. No, she's on the side of the Greeks with Hellenists.
Oh, yeah, September Lee, yeah.
So, and it came to the times of Hanukkah, the Jews had the same situation as Yosef. Should we put our lives in danger for a mitzvah?
That's right.
Or should we just go along with the flow and do what makes sense? And by Hanukkah, the Greeks, they violated the Jewish woman, they stole Jewish money, they were very big persecutors to the people of Israel. And during a time of danger, of persecution, of anti-Semitism, where there's a king as evil as Nebuchadnezzar or Hitler or kings like Haman, like that caliber, if they tell someone to go against the Torah and even a small mitzvah, the person has to obligated to give up their life for it.
Because actually,
Because now it's sanctifying Hashem's name.
because it is actually, they're specifically going after the Jewish religion, you're saying.
Correct. So on Bris Milah, on Shabbos, on Rosh Chodesh, and all these things, the Jews gave up their lives during the time of the Greeks. None of these are mitzvahs which one must give up their life for. If it's a danger, you don't have to give up your life. If a child cannot have a bris medically, they don't give a bris because you don't have to give up your life for it. So if two older brothers died from complications of a bris, the third brother doesn't have to have a bris according to the Torah. But nowadays, medically, it could improve things a lot. But for every single mitzvah in the Torah, even a bris milah, Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, and it says even changing the Jewish dress, which back then was from white shoelaces to black shoelaces. They give up their life for, because it's a war against the Torah. It's not a war. It's not that one's life is in danger and you have to save your life. It's because it's a war against Hashem, a war against the Torah. And the sons of the Chashmonaim, the Maccabees, they were very few in number, and they stood up against the army, which was much more than them numerically, strength-wise, and they had no qualms, and they went and they had a war. Did they think they're going to win the war? Probably not. But they stood up against him because we have to defend the Torah. We have to defend Hashem.
And interestingly, while the majority of the Hellenists fought on the side of the Greeks, when it came right down to it, a minority of the Hellenists, even though they're Hellenists, fought on the side of the Jews.
Interesting, because they cared about Jews more than they cared about the Hellenists.
Exactly.
Even though they didn't agree with what the Jews are saying.
Exactly.
So we say Haneres Hallelu, these candles which we light. We say these candles we light Ala Nisim for the miracles, Ala Chuas, because Hashem saved us, through your holy Kohanim, the priest. Who cares? If we're thanking Hashem for saving us from the Greeks, who cares? Why do we have to mention it was a Kohanim? The priests in the Beis HaMikdash were the ones who fought the war with the Greeks. But it's important to know that, because the Hakadoshim, you have to know they're the holiest people of the Jewish nation were the ones who were fighting against the Greeks. And they're just the same as Yosef. Just like Yosef was an important person, and he had to make a point in order to fulfill the mitzvah of kibbud of aim. I'm going to put myself in danger because I'm an important person. I have to make a point and make a stand. So the greatest Jews were the ones who made the stand and says, we're going to fight against the Greeks. To show a stand, we're fighting against those who fight against Hashem. And just like Yosef was rewarded immensely, it took 22 years. It took 12 years from that point, but he became the second command in Egypt, saved the world, and the Chashmonaim were the same thing. Hashem saved them. Now let's go in the 3 minutes we have left. Let's examine this a little bit of a deeper level, because I know Dovi's a very deep mind because he works with AI the whole day, so some of it rubbed off on him. Let's use some of your real intelligence and leave the artificial intelligence for the machines.
Okie dokie.
Did the Greeks want to kill the Jews?
No.
No, they didn't want to kill the Jews. Surprisingly, you ask the Hamas, you want to kill Jews? Yes.
Yes.
Ask the Nazis, want to kill Jews? Yes. The Romans, you want to kill Jews? Yes.
You want
to kill the Jews? Yes. Greeks want to kill the Jews?
No.
No. Like there are many anti-Semites today says, no, we have nothing against the Jews, just a Zionist, just the Israeli people, just people who are the same religion as those people, but nothing against the Jews. We love the Jews very much. We'll attend the memorial for the victims, but God forbid to fight back, right? The Greeks didn't actually want to kill the Jews. They didn't destroy the Beis HaMikdash. They said, we want you all to assimilate. We want to be your friends. We want you to become the greatest minds, thinkers, athletes, doctors, beauty contest winners that the world could provide. Torah is awesome. We're going to teach it as a course in university. And even, they said, Chassidus, beautiful. Jewish mysticism, we're going to make a museum about it. It's wonderful. Don't take this stuff for real. You really mean this for real? You're actually going to give a kiss to a sefer? If you go to university, right? Our university books are on the shelf. They're on the floor. It's fine. You're telling me you have to give a kiss to tefillin? They said you could light a menorah, beautiful culture. I love it. I love this idea of it. You could light a beautiful tree outside, for your holiday, and light a menorah. It sounds wonderful. We'll put it into the Museum of Jewish History in Prague. But you're going to tell me that it has to be with special oil with the Kohen Gadol seal that's pure and impure? Tumah v'tara, you're telling me going to the mikvah has a meaning? You're telling me tumah, tara, purity and impurity is anything? You're telling me that you believe in Hashem in an irrational way? Follow the science.
That's what they always say, and get they confuse men and women.
So that's why they didn't destroy the Beis HaMikdash. Even the oil, they didn't take the oil and pour it out and get rid of the oil. Rather, what they did is they took off the seal of the Kohen Gadol. So now it's no longer pure. Now it's just another idea. Now Shem and oil is when you have to crush an olive, the very depths of the olive. Wine, you just squeeze. A grape you squeeze to get grape juice out, and wine. Oil, olives you gotta crush. Meaning, so it goes on chachma. Bina is wine, and chachma is oil because it's really deep down. And chachma is our belief in Hashem, the simple, unadulterated belief in Hashem. When you do a mitzvah, it's not enough just to understand there's a reason behind it. Understand that Hashem is smarter than me, and therefore I'm doing it by even though I don't know the reason for it. I turn my car on, I drive it. Do I understand how it works? I'm not a mechanic. And if I have a headache, I take a Tylenol to understand how it works? No, I'll leave it for the doctors. So I'll do a mitzvah, I don't understand how it works. Okay, Hashem is smarter than me. That's just one basic level of the mitzvah. And the Greeks were okay with that, actually. There must be a reason for it, and yeah, I'm sure all the Native American rituals have a reason, we just don't know what it is. No, it's much more than that. We do a mitzvah because it's part of Hashem, the chachma. This is the holiness of Hashem, the holiness of the Torah. And we're ready to give our lives up, even though it makes zero sense. Not assuming we're going to be saved. And this was what the Kohanim did. And this is the war of the Chashmonaim, which was the exact same thing as Yosef. They're ready to give up their life to fulfill a mitzvah. And what's the result of all of this? When we expand that connection to Hashem, is that eventually Hashem makes a miracle. We find that one pure jar of oil, and eventually Hashem makes a little bit of oil, lasts for 8 days and nights, and therefore we have 8 days of Hanukkah to celebrate, and we should all celebrate right now. Enough talking about the menorah. We should light the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. If anybody needs candles, let me know, please. I'll be happy to arrange for you candles.
Well, as far as I know, I have enough candles, but if we do need, I shall let you know.
Okay, Yasher Koyach and Yossi.